Variegated philodendrons are incredibly popular in the plant community, and a lot of these really expensive variegated philodendrons are now being found at big box shops and plant nurseries for a fraction of the price. Variegation can be found in all different plant species, and it refers to the appearance of different colors on the leaves. Usually you'll see shades of white, cream yellow, or a light green mixed in with the typical green foliage. Now this happens due to a genetic mutation which affects the chlorophyll in the leaves. Today I'm going to be sharing some different types of variegated philodendrons. If you're newer to this genre of houseplants, I'm also going to be sharing your care, caring for these plants. Then I'm going to share how to promote the variegation on these philodendrons. This is something that we discuss a lot in the plant community. Then I'm going to be sharing some common issues that come up and solutions to those problems. This Houseplant Care 101 series is sponsored by rePotme.com. With rePotme, you can have all of your houseplant supplies delivered right to your door. They are a one-stop shop for all of your houseplant, orchid, or succulent needs. They have custom handmade houseplant soils ranging from tropical houseplants, cactus and succulents, pothos, snake plants, and more. I cannot live without their clear slotted orchid pots. They have amazing houseplant fertilizers and so much more. I've included their link in my description below, and you can get 10% off any soil with my code Ashley. There are so many different types of variegated philodendrons. Just a few that are really popular on the market is the Philodendron Pink Princess. This one used to be so expensive, and now we're seeing it at big box shops for $20. The Philodendron White Knight is the same thing. Philodendron Brazil is another great one. Philodendron Birkin. I could just go on and on with all the amazing variegated philodendron varieties. So caring for your variegated philodendron. Just like most tropical plants, philodendrons and variegated philodendrons can be prone to root rot. So you want to make sure you're watering correctly, and more importantly that you have the correct soil. So I will share a soil recipe, but for watering you want to make sure that the soil is about halfway to fully dry in between waterings. I wouldn't recommend watering on a set schedule. I would definitely recommend watering according to how the soil is doing. And if you're not sure, you can always get a moisture meter. That's always a very helpful tool. Having overly saturated soil, also known as overwatering your plant, can cause root rot on that plant, and that's really the quickest way for your plant to go downhill. And I would always recommend making sure you're underwatering rather than overwatering your plant. Now these are tropical plants and they do like a warmer temperature, so you want to make sure that you are giving that plant around 65 degrees Fahrenheit to 90 degrees Fahrenheit. As a rule of thumb, I always say if you're comfortable in your environment, your plant is comfortable in your environment. Now the most important step I'd say is soil, because if you have the right kind of soil, no matter how much water you give that plant, the excess will drain through and you won't have to worry about root rot as much. So just make sure you have a super well draining soil. Now you can easily make your own soil blend. You can use a 50% potting mix and a 50% perlite, pumice, orchid bark mixture. You want 50% to retain moisture and 50% to make sure that enough moisture drains out of the soil. And you can also get a customized soil blend. I love the rePotme soils. I am obsessed with them. They have ones for philodendron, monstera, snake plants, cacti and succulents, aloe. I could go on and on and on. And to me, when you only repot every couple of years, it's so worth having the right kind of soil and the right kind of pot to ensure you don't even have to worry about root rot and issues with your plants. And no matter how many plants you have, we all struggle with plants that don't make it. So again, I see like a huge difference in percentage of plants that thrive in my care now that I've switched to the correct soil, whether that be making my own soil or using a customized soil blend. Also, I do recommend making sure that your pot is the correct size, so it's not too big, 1 to 2 inches bigger than the root ball itself. And you want to make sure whatever pot you use has a lot of drainage holes, again, to help that excess water drain out. So I like to use nursery pots because I like to switch out my cover pots, and I like the ones from rePotme. They're the clear slotted orchid pots. I can keep an eye on the roots, I can keep an eye on the moisture in the soil. I'd say make sure that you're fertilizing your philodendrons. It's especially important with variegated plants because the variegated plants and variegated philodendrons don't have as much opportunity as the solid green leaves to create enough chlorophyll and photosynthesize and that kind of thing. So you can substitute that with fertilizing. So use usually something that's for philodendrons or for houseplants. Start at a 50% strength at the beginning of the warm months when the growing season is kicking off. starting at 50%, seeing how your plants react, full strength during the summer months, tapering down and stopping in the fall and when it starts to get cooled off. So the plants typically tend to go dormant in those winter months. So here are some tips to promote the variegation on your variegated philodendron. One of the big things we have to deal with some of these variegated plants is they'll actually revert back to solid green. And one of the ways that you can kind of temper this or stop this from happening is giving those philodendrons enough light. Now, a lot of philodendrons are actually known for being somewhat low light tolerant. Philodendrons are so great, a lot of times you can just put them somewhere and they'll be fine. They won't necessarily grow a lot in lower light, but you know, they can handle lower light conditions. Let me preface this by saying all plants need light to survive. However, the variegated philodendrons may revert back to solid green if they're not given enough light. So I would say definitely go with a bright indirect light. Bright indirect light usually means close to a window, maybe not directly in the window. Most of these philodendrons can handle bright morning light because the UV is a little bit lower, but they may not be able to handle super bright afternoon light. So you don't want it to be blasting afternoon sun on those leaves, but some bright morning light or bright indirect light throughout the day is exactly the perfect light that these philodendrons will need. Now you can try the bright light, some philodendrons can handle that. However, keep an eye out for like burning and crisping on the leaves. I paid a lot of money to get a variegated burrow marks, and some of the new growth was solid green. It lost its beautiful variegation. So what you can do in that case is actually prune back those solid green leaves. If you want to, you can prune all the way back to where you see the leaves actually are still variegated, and hopefully pruning it back will encourage that new growth to be variegated. And just make sure you have it in a spot where it's getting enough light that that new growth can shoot off variegated leaves. You wouldn't think that watering and feeding could play a role in keeping consistent variegation. However, the stress from underwatering, overwatering, or inadequate fertilizing can cause your plant to revert, actually. And this is something that I've learned recently myself. And it makes sense because these plants actually prefer to have solid green leaves, because the white part, the variegated part of the leaf, actually doesn't do anything for the plant. It sucks energy from the plant because it doesn't have enough chlorophyll to really promote the plant to photosynthesize. So we're doing everything we can to make the plant super happy, to ensure that it's not stressed out, and trying to make all of its leaves solid green. So for your variegated philodendrons, it's worth taking a little bit of extra time to make sure we're fertilizing correctly and we're watering correctly. So if you've tried everything, your philodendron has reverted, what you can do is actually propagate the most variegated parts of that plant, and hopefully the propagated variegated parts of your plant will put off new shoots and variegated plants. So that's kind of a last resort, is to chop and prop. And you can chop and prop the solid green parts too. I mean, those plants are absolutely great. You're not probably going to get much variegation out of there. Just take the parts that are the most variegated, either propagated in water or sphagnum moss or whatever your preferred route of propagation is, or preferred method of propagation is. That variegated part of the plant has the most likely chance of being variegated, and I would recommend making sure that the stem has variegation on there as well, not just the leaf itself. Next up are some common issues that you may face with your variegated philodendron, and a lot of these are actually relevant for your standard green philodendrons as well. Yellowing leaves are one of the first signs that something's wrong with your plant, whether it's a variegated plant or not. So this is usually a sign to check out what's going on. Make sure you have proper drainage, make sure you're not overwatering, underwatering, correct fertilization, that kind of thing. One of the big issues we see with variegated philodendrons is that the white part of the leaf actually begins to brown, and this is usually a humidity issue. I see this with a lot of plants, and these tropical plants usually enjoy at least a 65% humidity, but fortunately there's an easy fix for this if you're in a zone where you don't have that much humidity. I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina right now, so we're at a balmy like 75% humidity at all times in the summer. But like I said, you can always supplement. So you could supplement with a humidifier, you could supplement with a pebble tray, but if you are seeing that browning or crisping, it's usually a humidity issue and it's an easy fix. And even if the old leaves are brown browning and crisping when you first bring it from the greenhouse, it may be that that plant just needs some time to adjust to its new environment. So you may see that the new leaves don't have any browning or crisping while the old leaves do. As always, pests are an issue with variegated plants just like they are with regular plants. So some things to keep an eye out for are little cobwebs, little brown kind of insects on the leaves, little white fuzzies, and some products to keep on hand are insecticidal soap or systemic granules. There are lots of like home remedies that you can use to prevent insects. I've done some other videos on, you know, preventing pests, but always keep an eye out for pests because that's a common issue that we can see. So there you have it, some helpful tips when caring for your variegated philodendrons. We have a super knowledgeable plant community, so please feel free to leave all of your helpful tips and tricks in the comments. And I've included links to all of the different products that I absolutely love with rePotme. I've linked them in my description below for all of you. If you like planty things, definitely subscribe so episodes show up in your newsfeed. I have a lot of different plant care videos in my Houseplant Care 101 series, and we also have a fabulous community on TikTok. All right, I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day and I get to see you soon. Bye.